So returning to my experience with narcissistic abuse. Now, first of all, I recognized that I was exhausted since the narcissist first entered my life. My life was no longer my own, and I knew this. Then from some sloppy moves that the narcissist made that almost gave the game away a few times, I started to question the reality if I was actually being used. Though this one, I used to push away quite a lot because I really struggled to accept that somebody would be so underhand and so cruel. Then the narcissist overplayed their hand big time, and it became glaringly obvious that I was being used. And this was so sickening to awaken to the reality that the narcissist was a vile and disgusting wretch. But then I got a further awakening, because instead of leaving in that moment of knowing this was a really sick and despicable, terrible person, I stayed for a little longer. And although it was really dangerous, I'm pleased that I did, because this is when the narcissist really came undone and the spiritual layer was pierced through. I didn't pierce it. The narcissist let it slip. And why this happened was, in the end, I was so disgusted by what had been done to me covertly that I wanted to show the narcissist that their little scheme had failed and that they no longer had power over me. And this frustration and anger and all of the negative emotional avalanche that this caused the narcissist completely made them come undone. And in that moment, unknowingly to me, I was entering a spiritual battle. But realistically, I was in it from the moment that I met the narcissist. So in my experience, and I've spoken about this before in another video, and I'm going to put a link below in the description box if you'd like to check it out. This fake relationship that I had with a malignant narcissist, it wasn't until the end that I realized that I'd been cheated, lied to, manipulated, exploited by somebody that was using my heart against me. When I eventually found out all of the lies, I was disturbed, devastated, and disgusted. And what I didn't mention in my previous story is before, this event occurred, I returned home to my country and I spent a period of time, a few weeks away from the narcissist and getting out of their energetic frequency by going far, far away. I mean, I changed continents. I put thousands of miles between us of land and sea. And getting that opportunity to be out of their influence, I was able to see a lot more clearly what was going on, and I started to feel peace again around me. And when you start to connect again with that sense of stability and peace, you're very sensitive to somebody coming in and jeopardizing it. It's like throwing a big stone into still water. It's going to cause ripples. And so I was aware that the narcissist was a massive negative energy in my life that was sucking the life out of me. And I knew I needed to break free, but a part of me didn't want to. And that's the trauma bond. But when I went back to my country, there was a woman there that I knew in the area, and I've met her before, and she was a very genuine and talented reader. And what I mean by that is she has gifts of perception. She's incredibly intuitive. And when she saw me, her reaction was really weird. And at this point, I knew that I was being used and lied to and probably, manipulated and exploited. Yet there were things that I wasn't able to fully say out loud or admit to myself, But she came to me so sick, like someone had punched her in the stomach, and she just felt like I was around somebody that had really dark intentions for me. And she reflected that she was incredibly worried about me and that I was in danger for my life. And she said to me, if I could wrestle you to the ground and stop you from getting on that plane, then I would. And I did take notice of her warning, because deep down inside of me, my intuition was telling me the exact same thing, but I was trying hard to override it in my brain and, try to make logical sense of it. It was illogical, but obviously I was suffering from huge cognitive dissonance, and I couldn't accept that the person that I loved and invested so much energy into loving and helping was a danger to me. And I didn't want to let go of the fantasy. And this is the thing. If you don't let go of the fantasy, you're going to lose yourself, and potentially you will lose your life. And so which do you want to lose? Which is more precious in the end? Is it you or is it the fantasy? And at the time, at the start, it was the fantasy that was more important to me. So in my mind, I did take heed of her warning, but I parked it somewhere far back. And I said to myself, well, I think it's an overreaction. I don't think that I'm in danger. I don't think that the narcissist is really that evil. So I was struggling a lot, as you can see, and I had no idea exactly what I was going to be walking back to. And I had no idea that this next period was going to require so much spiritual strength and energy from inside of me to get through. And, you know, breaking free physically from the narcissist was going to almost destroy me. But I had no idea, because I was still considering this was just on a physical level. I wasn't really seeing this for the spiritual entanglement of what it was and how hard it was going to be to break free. And friends of mine, they still have no idea what I went up against and what I faced in that final moment. And they think that when I say, you know, that I literally dance with the devil, they think that I'm saying that in a figurative way, when actually I mean it in a literal way. And when I returned to the energetic frequency of the narcissist and I went back to sharing an abode, that's when the narcissist started to lose control and tried first of all, the known physical worldly tactics possible. But then when that didn't work, the narcissist resorted to energetic tactics. And although this may sound strange to you, it wasn't strange to me, because I was aware all along that the narcissist did have a spiritual side. They just obviously painted it in a positive way, like mine. I had no idea that there was a spiritual side to them that just was really, really dark. And when the power over me started to decrease, the narcissist was then considering, what do I need to do? What do I need to pull out of the bag to get this person back under my control? So the narcissist 100% went to the place that they always go back to, which is the black arts, to try to meddle in the situation. And I felt the narcissist angry, and I felt the narcissist in a very rageful and, you know, scary emotions in the past. But there was a new energy now inside that house. And when I used to return after spending time outside, as I used to spend a lot of time outside, I never wanted to go back to that place. There was actually a tangible, foreboding energy of absolute dread. It was tangible. And I hated that house. And I hated being inside that energetic frequency, because I could feel it trying to take hold of me. But my light still pervaded. You know, I was very clear on keeping armored up. And whatever dark stuff they were doing, that didn't work either. And so they decided they were going to show me. They were angry. You have no idea, kind of thing, who you're dealing with. I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you. And that's when it came out. And if you recall in my video, I speak about how I came downstairs one day in the morning and nobody else was around, just me and the narcissist, as it was engineered to be. And I was invited to a mirror, and the narcissist had a room full of mirrors. And I know that sounds very odd, and it is very odd, but the narcissist had a room full of mirrors. And they had a black mirror too. And anyway, I was meant to go and look inside this mirror. And I didn't quite understand what was going on for quite some time. And obviously, that's when the narcissist stared at me through the mirror. And it was the weirdest thing. I didn't understand it. And then I finally twigged that there was a confrontation happening. But the narcissist wasn't speaking anymore. And this was all odd. They were showing me something silently. It's very hard to explain. You know, it's really hard to explain. I just knew in that moment, from the energy, from the look, you know, everything, I wasn't looking at the narcissist anymore. That wasn't the narcissist. Something else emerged. I was in a different energy. It was horrible. And I knew that they were trying to access me deeply. And I knew that it was a soul confrontation, trying to get me to resubmit. And it didn't work. It was the entire demeanor of that person that was changed. And it was very disconcerting. It was a foreboding energy and presence in the room that I never want to experience again. This was a deep knowing that it wasn't them. And it was a terrifying experience that made me know for sure that I was in serious danger and I needed to run. And I was way over my head. And, you know, I have to call it for what it was. That was a demonic encounter. It wasn't human. And I was distressed, and it left me shell-shocked, because what I also saw is, as soon as there was a hint of someone else, you know, coming into the room, that switch back to being their fake, vile selves, like nothing had ever happened. From that moment, there was never any going back for me, because I couldn't forget that, even though every part of me wanted to forget, I just couldn't. And of course, what I remembered, which gave this even more clarity for me is I knew that I'd felt and seen this before. I'd seen this level before when I had that THC gummy edible. I'm going to put the link below to that video. At the time, I thought I was tripping, although there were several things, including the narcissist's weird behavior and the words that they said that suggested that it wasn't a trip. It actually suggested a veil had been pierced. And what I experienced and felt in that trip, I was feeling the exact same thing, totally sober, now in front of them, in front of that mirror. So the very fact that this was now the exact same feeling the second time round. And then I remembered my older friend that fled the narcissist's house, believing the narcissist was demonic and siphoning energy. So here's my story. In the first few months of my last narcissistic relationship, when the mask was still firmly glued to the narcissist's face, and I had no idea it was a mask, I had no idea that there was something lurking behind it, I went to a party, and in the evening I was offered a gummy bear from the freezer. Now, two things. I'd never had an edible before in my life, and the second thing, I'd never even been high. I was so naive. Nobody said to me, what you need to do is just have a little bit. Because the gummy bear was so small anyway, I put the whole thing in my mouth and I ate it. So I got home and I was living with a narcissist at the time and another person. And it took about an hour and a half for this edible to kick in. And when it kicked in, I was standing in the kitchen and my eyelids became really, really heavy and they suddenly closed. I couldn't open my eyes. And I started crying crazy floods of tears. I couldn't stop. I felt so much pain. Not like pain in my body. I felt the pain of people on earth. I just couldn't stop crying. And then I lost power of my limbs and I had to collapse on the floor, and my ability to speak was also gone. I remember being sat there feeling totally out of my body, and I sensed like I was way back somehow. I was way back in my body and I was trying to command myself to move and to speak. But it took every piece of power that I had for me to do anything, to make any kind of move or to make any kind of noise out of my mouth. For anybody that has been in this kind of situation, it was so scary. You know, I was really, really lucky that I was home. But when the narcissist that I didn't know was a narcissist came to me, I remember I was totally out of it. I could barely move, like I said. My eyes also must have been closed as I couldn't open them, but I could see the narcissist when they came towards me, because I looked in their direction and I pointed my hand at them and I said, "You!" And why I said that, this is the thing that you'll probably think I'm crazy about, but I'm going to tell you what I saw in that trip and you can make your own mind up. Why I said that is because without a shadow of a doubt in that moment, I felt like I knew them very, very well and I'd known them before and we'd been connected. And I even saw a whole scene of where we were and what we were doing. And I knew that I had come to understand back then that they were bad, bad news. And all of a sudden, there they were in front of me, disguised as somebody else in a new body. But I knew who they were inside. In that moment, instead of seeing the mask and how that narcissist was presenting themselves, I got some kind of a gateway into seeing them for who they really were. And not just seeing, but feeling it. I felt this very strong, dark, evil presence that terrified me, and I didn't want them anywhere near me. In fact, when they came near me, I shouted at them, "Get away from me! Don't touch me! Get away from me!" And the thing was, you could say that this was just a coincidence, but I didn't have this feeling about the other person in the house. It was only the narcissist. But you see, there was still a part of me that was witnessing all of this and was fully conscious. I was aware that I was under the influence of a substance, and I recognized that I was probably paranoid. And for some reason, I'd become paranoid about this person I was in a relationship with. Actually, at the time, I really loved and I really trusted them. The thing that really disturbed me and stuck in my head after that experience is the giveaway of their reaction towards me tripping on them. Now, not only were they deeply offended by the fact that I didn't want them near me and all the things I said to them, but they became incredibly angry. Their reaction to my trip was really bizarre. It wasn't normal. Like for any normal person, they would understand, okay, my partner's having a trip. They don't mean anything that they're saying. They're hallucinating. They're getting paranoid. Let's just, look after them, make sure they're okay. The narcissist did not react like that, obviously, to me. They did not look after me in the slightest. In fact, they did the opposite. They were rather mean and evil, and they became enraged by the trip that I was having. They knew, I didn't know, but they knew that they were being exposed, and they did not like it. And because the narcissist didn't like being exposed, because they weren't ready to be exposed, they became quite vicious with me. Now, I didn't want them anywhere near me. I didn't want them in the same room as me, for sure. But they kept coming in that room, knowing full well that I was unable to move, sat next to me, and whispered a whole load of evil things in my ear. I couldn't understand, is this real? Is this actually being said? Or is this just a trip, an illusion? I asked a few days later to the narcissist, did you actually say those things to me? Or was that in my imagination? And the narcissist said, yeah, I said it. I'm not going to mention the evil things that were said to me in that very vulnerable moment where all that I needed was some love and reassurance. Yet they were so angry at me for outing them and seeing them for who they were before they were ready to be seen. And because of that, they became really vindictive. And it was like catching a thief red-handed. And you've got three options. You can either run, lie, or hold your hands up and say, yeah, you got me. Well, the narcissist in this particular occasion decided to hold their hands up. Okay, yeah, you've seen me. And not only have you seen me, but now I'm going to give it to you. And I must punish you for what you've just said to me and how you've just seen me. And what I saw and what I felt from them was pure evil. Like it was an evil that I cannot describe other than looking into hell. So getting now to some new findings. It may be new findings or it might not be new for you, but I'd never heard of a term called soulless beings or organic portals. A viewer, thank you to them, intrigued me by this and said that Rudolf Steiner for years had been discussing this topic of these soulless beings and organic portals. And I wanted to understand, you see, what other information was out there regarding the subject of demonic influences, demonic possessions. And this wasn't a topic that I would ever have believed could have been real until obviously I had my experience. And this research actually led me to a PDF document that I'm going to link down below. It's on Scribed, and it was written by somebody that I can't pronounce the name of, called Bernard Guenther or Gunther, and it was written in 2011, and it's actually called Organic Portals Piercing the Veil of Reality. And I'd like to read some quotes that he starts with, because I found this document pretty mind-blowing. Now, first thing that he says is 3 seminal quotes to set the stage. This is the first one. A considerable percentage of the people we meet on the street are people who are empty inside. That is, they're actually already dead. It is fortunate for us that we do not see and we do not know it. If we knew what a number of people are actually dead and what a number of these dead people govern our lives, we should go mad with horror. So this quote, from the offset is describing very much what we know about narcissists from a psychological point of view. Now, in psychology, they dictate that narcissists, like Sam Vaknin describes, are like vampires because they're the living dead. They're living, but they're not really alive. The heart's beating, is pushing blood around the body, but the heart is definitely not functioning as a human being because there's no love, there's no heart center, and the lights are on, but nobody's home. There is a full self, but where is the real self? What happened to the real self, and how can a soul seem to not be present? Where did they go? Where did the person go? There's meant to be a person, but instead there's this hollowness and it's a shell. But if only it was just a shell, if it was just emptiness, and the narcissist was vacant, but they're far from vacant because they're filled to the rim with what can only be described, as evil in many cases. And on the darker side, when psychopathy is interacting with NPD, we don't only find a shell person that contains a ton of negative emotion and this evil, but a drive to do serious harm to others and a desire to kill and destroy with pleasure. They know what they're doing, and that's what they want to do. This is not done out of innocence. It's not like, oh, it's my NPD, whoops, okay, I'll go to therapy. You've probably seen the film The Shining, and you know that red rum spells murder backwards. For the purpose of the algorithm, because I don't want to keep on saying that, I'm just going to use the term red rum and a red rummer. Narcissists moving up the scale of NPD are red rummers, even if they don't do it physically because they don't want to get caught. They will aim to red rum your spirit, and let's make no doubt about this. We know that that's truth. That's the danger of getting caught up with someone that is a psychopathic narcissist. Life will be in jeopardy when you're around them and in close contact. And I don't only know that from myself, but from lots of other people that got extremely sick around narcissists. The next quote on this document is from Sri Aurobindo. And honestly, whoever this person is, you're about to find out, has knowingly or unknowingly shone a light on the dark spiritual aspect of narcissism, and actually gives us the most crystal clear understanding, without a doubt, of what is going on a spiritual level, in my opinion. So there are some human beings who are like vampires. What are they, and why are they like that? And he continues, they're not human. There is only a human form of appearance. They are incarnations of beings from the world that is just next to the physical. The beings of this world have by their nature a strange grip over the material world and can exercise upon it a sinister influence. Some of them are formed of the human beings that persist after death in the vital atmosphere next to the earth plane. These are minor beings, and if they can be very troublesome, it is not yet, though, impossible to deal with them. So this would be your regular type of, ghost, but they can be dealt with. But I want to go on here because what is said by him now is very interesting. There are other beings far more dangerous who have never been in human form. They have never been born to a human body upon earth. For most of them, refuse to accept this way of birth because it is slavery to matter. And they prefer to stay in their own world, powerful and mischievous, and to control earthly beings from there. For if they do not want to be born on earth, they do want to be in contact with the physical nature, but without being bound by it. So are you following? This isn't a spirit of somebody that has once been. He's describing entities now of a demonic nature. What he's about to say now, I feel, shines a torch on this mystery and lots of questions that are usually unanswered of how does a human being, how does a malignant narcissist or a psychopath become both a vessel and a channel for such evil and demonic entities to work through? He's actually about to spell it out. Their method is to first try to cast their influence upon a man or woman. Then they slowly enter his or her atmosphere. And in the end, they may get complete possession of him or her, driving out entirely the real human soul and personality. These creatures, when in possession of an earthly body, have a human appearance, but they have not a human nature. I've said before, to try to help survivors of narcissistic abuse to change your mindset completely. And I said, don't see this as a human being as you know. It's an alien species to you. But what I became aware of with malignant narcissists is they're actually closer to being more of a creature than they are a human being. And that's not to be derogatory. This is literally the truth that you have to accept in your mind to keep yourself safe. And it's really hard to do because you may love and you may have a real attachment to the narcissist and their human form, to this idealized image of who you believe them to be from the start. And your eyes and your heart want to trick you to believe in the human form. Yet you know in your heart of hearts, there's such a danger. And I'm sure most of you that have dealt with this type of narcissist, you know there's more in operation. They're in more operation like a creature than they are a human being. Now, the following part of this quote is even more scarily accurate for describing those kind of dynamics within narcissistic relationships that I've been speaking about this entire time, as my hunch in the videos that I make. So he continues, to tell us about the operations and the aims of these entities. Their habit is to draw upon the life force of human beings. They attack and capture vital power wherever they can get and feed upon it. If they come into your atmosphere, you suddenly feel depressed and exhausted. If you're near them for some time, you feel sick. If you live with one of them, it may kill you. Now, there's much more to this quote that I'm eager to read to you. And I don't know, about you, but when I first read what you just heard, it pierced me as truth straight to my soul. And it was like, that is exactly what's going on here. I felt it. Some of my friends felt it too and tried hard to warn me and get me the heck away, but I wouldn't listen. I chose to believe in the lie of the narcissist and the deception of the humanity. But I knew I was being drained and depleted energetically. I felt, like I said about Bram Stoker's Dracula, I felt like I was imprisoned by a strange power over me. Although I kept on stuffing it down and rationalizing it in my mind, deep down my intuition was telling me that I was in serious trouble, but I refused to believe it because I didn't want that to be truth. I never saw this on the spiritual level. Even when my friend pressed upon me that the narcissist was siphoning energy, and she knew that that was such a violation of a human soul. She said the word energy vampire, but she knew that it was more. But at the time, she didn't really have the language. And I knew that I was being fed upon energetically because you do feel it. But, that exhaustion became the state of my being. And you can forget what normal life should feel like or, what you should feel like. Yeah, I was willingly giving myself as food. I was so hooked up. I was entranced and I wouldn't let go of it. And this, if I didn't let go in the end, was going to be the end of me. And obviously, in my tale, there was a big climax and it became my spiritual fight for survival. But nobody knew or would have seen what was taking place between us in those final weeks because this was all going on behind the scenes. It wasn't in the 3D realm. But I knew what was going on, and the narcissist knew also what was going on. And this was the most exhausting fight for my life, for the energy that it took to shake loose from that death grip and hold from these entities working through the narcissist. Wow, I don't think this was a singular entity at all, and I don't think that there really are singular entities. If you remember a dear subscriber of mine from months and months ago that's always supported the channel, shared his knowledge that demons like to work in groups. And I definitely believe this because I don't believe this was one-on-one. I believe it was me against a whole host of entities that were working through the narcissist. That's how it felt. The power was so strong over me, and getting loose from that kind of death grip was the hardest thing I think that I will ever have to go through in my life. And I definitely will make sure that I never end up there ever again.